platform has been used by large news and media companies for years. It consists of a number of modules, including Semantic Annotation to analyze text and enrich it with categories, topics, and concepts. Among other things, it enhances search, but it also supports contextual authoring, allowing journalists to get automatic recommendations of relevant content. Content curators use the semantic metadata to continuously improve the quality of text analytics. As you'll see in a little while, semantic publishing also enhances the visitor experience with dynamic personalization based on user profiles, readership behavior, and targeted content recommendations. The use cases for this technology extend beyond traditional news and media. Semantic publishing enables agencies, newspaper groups, and advertisers to semantically target advertising, contributing to higher rates of conversion. And news aggregators can analyze large volumes of content, quickly filter through a variety of news, categorize articles, and publish them based on specific themes or topics their customers have requested. Today, we're fortunate to have an expert in this field talk with us. Borislav Popov is the General Manager of News and Media at Ontotext, and he'll review the platform with you in more detail. Borislav has been with Ontotext since the beginning in 2000 and really has a unique perspective on the industry and semantic publishing in general. He has literally been in the trenches with the world's biggest publishers, deploying semantic technology in support of the applications we just mentioned. Borislav and his team have worked with architects and development teams worldwide to get this done. I encourage attendees to submit all their questions through their Q&A panel at any time during the presentation. We will take questions as they come up, and we'll also, if time allows, take questions at the end of the event. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be sent to all the registrants after the event. At the end, we'll mention a couple of news announcements, but just one quickly here. Ontotext will be at the London Book Fair April 14th to 16th this year. We'll be exhibiting and presenting on the 15th, and we encourage you to continue this conversation with Borislav and his team. Borislav, you can take the webinar from here.
Yeah, hi everybody. This was really nice intro. Thank you, Tony. I mean, I feel, wow. So the story is much simpler. I turned off my camera just for a second so that you can see a face behind the voice. Then I'll switch it off again. But yeah, I mean, my background is quite technical, primarily in software engineering, a lot of text analytics. And somehow in the end, I primarily focused in the publishing industry, ranging from news and media publishers, and also scientific and academic ones. And that's actually what I do with my team. And yeah, I've been requested to give this webinar. We'll see how well it goes. I mean, if a sales guy was doing it, probably it would sound better, but yeah, let's see if we can share some insights with you, and we hope that it will be beneficial. So I know that's an aggressive slide, the one that I'm starting with, but we all know that it is true, yeah? I mean, this romantic past when everybody was running around with a newspaper under their arm is well gone. So the question is, okay, what we can do now with technology, and in this case with semantic technology. And I'll share a few messages with you, and then we move on to more detailed stuff. So our main objective is to make the entire publication process more productive, ranging from the authoring, but also the maintenance of the quality and the actual presentation to the user. That's really what it's all about, you can say. I mean, how we do it, in a way, we are doing it mainly by automatic enrichment of content with metadata, with topics, with concepts, with relationships, still giving the power to the journalists and to the editors and some new jobs like metadata managers and curators. the final, let's say, outcome of our technology from our 7 years of experience directly with major international publishers, we can probably simplify it and say, okay, for us this gives us the opportunity to reuse and repurpose content on one hand side. Nowadays also to personalize content streams, create content products which are around user interests. And in the end, the whole point is about engaging readers even more, yeah? So now maybe the only textual slide. I know that probably you don't like to read so much, but I mean, when it's a PowerPoint, I personally hate it. But just to give you an idea what we'll be talking about, because all of you are busy people, and I guess you have the right to know before you enter into this journey with us. So we'll talk about semantic technology, which enables news and media publishers, and we'll start from a conceptual architecture so that it is maybe not technically so correct, but let's say understandable for a wide range of people. We'll discuss different phases of this production process, the way that we see, the ways our experience shows it works with publishers. And then we'll tell you actually that this is the first time we shape something that is more reusable based on this experience and actually drawing from the experience with our clients. We'll show some examples, some demos. If somebody is interested, we can talk a bit, just a few slides on the technology under the hood, and actually the more interesting part, how we approach such solutions and how we specialize our new solution to different publishers, what is the involvement of the client, and what is our involvement, and so on. And then, I mean, it's fair to say that you will make it much easier for me if you ask questions during the presentations, because this will guide me towards what is your interest. Yeah? So, I mean, one of the, let's say, simplified versions of what a typical semantic publishing architecture would look like is this slide. It's an actual architecture that we have done for about 50 publications in the Netherlands. And they act much more as, let's say, news aggregators, not as news producers, because they have a common company where all the content, all the news articles they produce go to the same platform delivered by us, and they try to build third-party applications and create new revenue streams based on it. So on the left-hand side, in the bottom, you can see different sources. In their case, it was different RSS feeds, going into a content store, passing to semantic enrichment or concept extraction, you can say, pipelines created by us in the middle, these being both powered but also indexing their output in a semantic database. The whole semantic database containing also a domain model which is relevant for them, different types of entities, relationships, and so on. And having an API layer on top, which on the basis of which they produce some user interfaces, some other parties produced mobile apps, and so on. So this is, let's say, the simplified form of how it looks for a news aggregator that does not produce content but wants to serve it in a smart way. Yeah? A more complicated picture, again, not complicated from the point of view of technology that is underneath, no elaboration on the different APIs, but more it is about the different workflow phases or steps, production steps that we have seen in our clients. And it all starts with the journalist. It all starts with the most valuable thing in media, the actual intellectual property there being the content. And so for authors, we think that we have identified in the years what is the additional information which is useful for them so that we can enable them to create better stories much faster. We have understood that after this automatic enrichment, in order to continuously enable our text analytics to perform better and better, we need a certain level of curation, of quality assurance by curators. This also ensures that what goes published on the media portal is with correct tags, you can say. And also if more massive jobs are being done for annotation than the enrichment monitoring, which means like monitoring all these annotation jobs, all these enrichment jobs continuously, and having more or less like a dashboard of what is going on in your production pipeline. All of this being driven by semantic database. You can see later also some other databases, of course, powered by structured linked data, be it coming from the public space or coming from proprietary structured sources like databases and so on. One of the main things, number 4 on this slide, one of the main things that was, let's say, driving this dynamic semantic publishing in the last years was the automatic reuse and repurpose of content. And for this purpose, we enable the publisher to create dynamic templates, be it for pages on specific topic, for a specific entity like a person or organization, or some other comparative analysis type of pages that you usually see around be it sports events or political elections or something like this, where each individual component is driven by dynamic queries to the backend. And in the end, the presentation layer, where you give the user not only the reading and navigation capability, but also much more enhanced search capabilities, trend analytics of different types, and dynamically changing topic pages. And in the last year or so, we have added to this portfolio also the behavior-driven personalization or behavior-driven recommendations that we will also mention in this presentation. Okay, so I'll start from the authoring part. This is a very, very old diagram of how we started drafting this idea a few years ago. The first time we have implemented it for an internal publication of a technology company, of an engineering company. It's with 400,000 people, called Siemens, and producing a lot of the trains we ride on and a lot of the other technology we use in our lives. So for their internal publications, we created such a contextual authoring system, and that was the first draft that we made. The whole idea is, as the journalist or the author types in, then relevant information and data is being served to the journalist so that it can enrich the story, can be referenced inside the story, and actually create the proper, let's say, writing environment or authoring environment. Yeah? This thing, if you want to see a mock-up, because primarily for it we do not provide user interfaces, we provide APIs for this phase to our clients because they embed it in their existing authoring environments. So if you want to look at it, what it actually gives, it will give different type of trending information, entity profiles, or let's say profiles of specific concepts, related articles, be it from the archive of the media or from external sources. Yeah? So how does this whole thing work? It is deeply connected to the capability to automatically enrich the content with additional concepts. Yeah? So to be able to automatically tag it. And this approach is creating something that I tend to call in the last months as metadata fingerprint, you can say. So it's the fingerprint of this asset. This is the fingerprint of this article. And this fingerprint already allows you to create all these recommendations to show relevant data, relevant content, allows you to measure different types of similarity between user interests and articles and so on. So this is one of the key under the hood steps that we undertake the moment that content reaches our platform. Yeah? And this is not a new idea. In the past, we were calling it a semantic annotation. It's pretty much us that coined the term probably about 12, 13 years ago. Probably even now, if you look for semantic annotation, will be in the top results of Google. The whole idea is that we have indices on top of text, we have indices on top of data. We have different types of schemas or ontologies that describe a specific domain, but actually a holistic index, an index that includes all of these aspects of information, is something that can allow us to answer much more complicated questions, to have real, lively connections and links between data and content. Yeah? So this is the whole concept behind it that we have evolved in technology for the last 15 years. I'll give you an example. I hope it doesn't look scary. It probably looks ugly, but it should be informative. So on the right-hand side, you have the content, in this case articles, through automatic semantic enrichment or concept extraction, different types of entities, of relationships, of different facts are being recognized and being also associated with the article, and this is represented in a semantic database by different connections, like the article mentions these people, but also this person is related to this organization through a specific relationship and so on. So this is the type of simplified, let's say, representation of the type of semantic indices that this technology creates, so that you can drive the actual presentation process, but also the previous production steps in a typical.
Borislav, this is Tony. A question came in. What types of files are supported in the annotation process, and is OCR supported?
Yeah, so we had many solutions, of course, when OCR was an important part, just because a lot of legacy content exists. We have done such things for the US government. We have done it also for some engineering companies in Europe and so on. We are not specialized in OCR ourselves, so for such tasks we are exploiting, let's say, third-party APIs, and we believe that this is the right way to do it because we cannot be specialized in everything. So the vast variety of different file formats and so on, we pretty much use transformation processors, you can say, in order to get this into a semi-structured form, be it like XMLs or directly RDF. Yeah. Should I continue or we take more questions?
That was good. Thank you, Borislav. Yes, you can continue.
So the next step, as we mentioned in this overall diagram, is the monitoring. So actually a dashboard that tells you what is going on with the enrichment phase in my production process. And we believe that this is extremely important. And the reason for this is that in some situations you need to be able to monitor these annotation processes and decide on which type of entities to focus, on which type of articles to focus for quality assurance and for curation. And in this way, for example, the example I gave with these Dutch newspapers, we managed to focus the curators down to about 2% of the articles, which contained the most new or the most ambiguous entities, or entities where the machine learning algorithms, let's say statistics-based algorithms of our text analytics were not 100% sure, or they were not even 50% sure. And also on the level of different articles, being able to give them the most recent correct ones, the partially correct ones, or something that went outside of the expectations completely. Yeah? So you can consider that this is more or less like a dashboard for monitoring all these jobs of automatic enrichment. Yeah? Diving into individual documents is a more important task. It's more important because some publishers want 100% quality of their tags. And this, of course, is true for publishers that produce, let's say, few hundred articles a day. In many other cases, the focus is, as I said, in a very, very limited percentage. And here the whole focus is on actually editing inline the output of the automatic enrichment, of the concept extraction, and in this way not only ensuring that the properly annotated content goes in production, but also ensuring that this is a good, you can say, gold standard example, so that the machine learning algorithms can train on this basis. Yeah? So accumulating such corpora of, let's say, human generated or human curated examples. Yeah? There are other examples, of course, how this works in actual client environment, and the system that was driven by our APIs, but the user interface was created by a client for the London Olympics a few years ago. And this shows you the same curation process where people want to be very quick in deciding what is wrong and what is right, because they want to roll this news article out to the users as quickly as possible. So the next thing, which is quite interesting, we support this on the API level in the moment. We are considering in the next quarter to release also a user interface for let's say, generating such dynamic templates. Is this whole idea how the concept of from the times of the let's say early BBC adoption of semantic technology, how the concept of dynamic semantic publishing started. So the whole idea was that topic pages, be it profile or topic like a specific theme, should be generated on the fly. They should not be static. They should be generated on the basis of on the most recent information, and include different types of associations or relationships between concepts, different types of trending trends and popularity timelines. The representation of the, let's say, connections of this entity in the knowledge graph or in the semantic database. Most recent assets like articles or videos or images about this. And this is, let's say, still one of the key things, key features that our clients demand from us. It's also a key feature of the news-focused publishing solution that we are rolling out. In the same time, it is important to understand that this is based only on the type of richness and quality that one can create in the knowledge base or in the ontology and the instance data, and also the quality of the automatic enrichment, but of course also the role of the human as a final guarantor for the output of such a system. Yeah?
Borislav, quick question. Back to the curation. It seemed like there was an interface for humans to go in there and make corrections as they see needed. Is there also a more automatic way for curation that's more software-based and doesn't involve the individual?
Yes, of course. So pretty much everything that we train the system to do is to be able to do this curation without a human. Yeah. Of course, you know, the types of entities mentioned in content change, and you know, sometimes the content changes, like for example, over a longer period, you tend to see much shorter, let's say, pieces of content in social media and so on. But the whole idea is that we exploit as a part of our extraction or enrichment pipelines machine learning methods. And these machine learning methods are trying to create a model of what is right and what is wrong in different contexts, based on a variety of features that they observe over the text. How they are trained, a lot of the quality can be achieved without human interaction, let's say intervention. Probably between 60 and 70% of accuracy is achievable with nowadays data sets. On this basis, we actually aim to go to about 95 to 98% of accuracy, and this is possible only with human feedback. So you can consider it like this, that if there are 100 different mentions of entities and relationships in content, then you need to touch 2 or 5, of these 100 in order to make the system better. Yeah.
Very good. There's one follow-up question on dynamic templates, and it has to do with the great quantities of text that could be coming in. Is there some filtering process that's applied if you have massive amount of content coming in?
That's an interesting question, because really in our let's say experience with clients, we have really clients that have just a few hundred articles a day, and others which request like hundreds of thousands a day. Yeah. And in a way, it is important to understand, and probably I have to make this somehow more clear when we talk about technology, that what we are giving is, okay, readily prepared solution for news and media, but in the same time, this solution is readily prepared just because it is preloaded with defaults, yeah, with a default ontology, with handpicked data sets, with trained already extraction pipeline and so on. But actually this type of filtering and decisions of what needs to be processed and what not and so on, this pretty much lies with the client. So it is our role more or less just to train the technical stuff on the client side, how to use this technology, and then they have the entire freedom and control. So yes, it is not in the default let's say, feature set, but it is definitely being done on the client side already.
Thank you.
Should I go on, or?
Yes, you can go on, Bobby.
Okay, and the last, let's say, phase from this walkthrough, and I'll be very brief with it, although it is a very, very important one, is the actual presentation layer. This is the moment where the content reaches the user. And I mean, on this level, of course, we give not only the simple reading and navigation experience, but a lot of different types of fascinating search, like direct lookup in the knowledge graph in the semantic database, using the facets to be able to navigate and see like what is the context of this entity that I have chosen to search for, different types of most relevant concepts in a specific context, and also different trending information like what was popular when, and by further clicking through you can find out why, because maybe there was some event. Yeah. So these last two ones were a bit short, but the reason is I prefer that we show you some demos, some examples, and then maybe it will be more, let's say, understandable than just these more or less dry slides. And just a few more things on our newest edition in the last year. We were very, very lucky to enter a completely new market, and with a major international publisher. So pretty much Financial Times asked us to give them a behavior-driven or user action-driven recommendation system, and we had to compete to other guys and so on. And it is now in production already 8 months, and it's completely hosted and handled by us just because FT decided this way, but of course this could be on premises This is a part of our news solution. It's a part of our publishing platform. So what it does is actually it gathers user actions without knowing anything about the demographics or some personal data of the user. Yeah? So it's completely anonymous for us who the user is and so on. The actual publisher can combine our profiles already with the demographic information and even derive even better results. And on this basis, we can create like home pages or landing pages that are personalized based on your browsing history, based on what you have shared, what you have liked, and so on. And we consider that the combination of, let's say, the semantic enrichment of content and quite interesting models, mathematical models that we have created for modeling the user profile, also with the aspect of forgetting some of the previous history and so on, are something that is really a game changer here. Yeah? And also the interesting part was that we were that open with the clients that have, let's say, adopted this technology so far, that we're that open to completely disclose the algorithms and the code for these algorithms, of course, through retaining our intellectual property, but this gives them really the understanding what we are doing, and they join us in order to change it in better ways. Let's say the contextual part of these behavior-driven recommendations are, let's say, a specific case where the user is already reading something. It's not his landing page. And then in this case, it's, of course, takes into account what the user is reading, not only the user interests. And then just an example of what are the types of actions that can be monitored, like different direct actions to the content, or more actions that go through search interfaces and choosing a specific result. Excuse me. So this is more or less just to give you an idea. So we're having a separate release of the recommendation engine, and then on this situation, you'll be able also to see it if you're interested. Yeah? So what it is all about, the experience that we have in the last 6-7 years, we decided to actually package it and productize it. And this is what we have been focused for more than 1 year, in parallel to serving our clients as we have always done. So you can say half of our job is to do product development, and half of the job is actually to help clients put this into their production environments. And so the publishing platform tailored for news and media is going to be released just in a few days. It is, you can say, the first people that we tell. It's you, and we are thankful that you're with us in this moment. So for many of the phases that you have seen, we're providing just APIs and not user interfaces. For the rest, we provide also user interfaces to start with, to have default extraction pipelines and data sets to build upon. And then it is pretty much the decision of your organizations people on the side of the client, whether they want to stick with these data sets or start building the domain models and the data sets from scratch and respectively changing the text analytics. So this is pretty much the big thing, and maybe now it's time just to show you some stuff, and then we can continue with the presentation. I'll just get a sip of water because it was too much talking for me. And if there are questions now, it's actually a very good time.
I think you've covered most of the questions. There was one that came in about the concept extraction API, which we answered. If you want to make a couple of comments on how the concept extraction API works, that might be helpful.
Yeah, maybe just start by showing something just an article from BBC, for example, this unfortunate event with the airplane that crashed in the Alps, And I really did not try this one, so let's see how much one of our demo services performs. And then, so for example, we can focus just on a specific thing here. Okay, Marseille is recognized as an organization because this is the municipality in this case, a specific guy, and then also a relationship between them saying, okay, this guy is the prosecutor of Marseille. And okay, this is the same annotation. Some, let's say, different types of geographic locations which are mentioned, some navigation is possible and so on. So this is, let's say, the baseline, not specialized pipeline that we provide. It is public, so this is something that we are going to announce also in the next weeks. Pretty much it has its API documentation, it has a getting started guide, shows you the type of, let's say, basic entities that it recognizes based on linked data sets. You can browse through the documentation and get an idea what it is. And we'll be surely sending you information about this, how you can use it and so on. In the beginning it will be completely free, and then on this basis, on the basis of the interest, we decide whether we make it pay after some extent, or we decide to go in the direction of let's say just extending with more specialized pipelines. You can see the actual documentation for, let's say, from the programming point of view, how to use this and so on. Another view, and I'll use something that we have prepared for Financial Times quite a long time ago, and I have the, let's say, the opportunity to show it because in their case, internally, technologically, they're already far beyond this point. So it's not breaching any rights, but you can see interesting situations like, okay, finding a person, finding also that he's the co-founder of an organization, then also finding a quote of this person, and all of these things are being represented as, you can say, graph-like data. Being able to explore also, let's say, let's find something. Yeah, explore different types of annotations and so on. Of course, this is nothing that you want to show to your users, to your readers. I mean, this will be too much, yeah? But this is our way to communicate with our clients and our partners, and also actually to showcase it. So otherwise, this whole metadata fingerprint, as I called it, stays under the hood, it's behind the scene, but this is the type of information that allows you to actually interlink, reuse, and repurpose your content. And yeah, so maybe just go to the default, let's say, showcase that we'll be announcing quite soon. So yeah, we can just click on something. Okay, it's just a picture, so not good enough. So some other article. So you can see the annotations on one hand side. You see people, you can navigate to their profiles. You can also see the most relevant concepts in this context. So for example, Jesse Jackson is definitely the most relevant because the article is about him. You can see some timelines and choose what you want to see, and then on this basis focus even more here. And this whole thing is just an example, and by using let's say the faceted search, you can actually go and choose different people like Elon Musk, and then you see automatically the facets are being updated with associated entities. So you see Tesla, SpaceX, Apple started doing an electric car, so maybe this is the reason they come up here and so on. And yeah, so this will be something that you will be able to actually test yourselves. And our wish for the next quarter is to make a cloud service where actually clients can put in at least their content, additionally their data sets and so on, and actually have their own private sandbox, you can say, where you can play. And for technical people on the client side, this will be a very fast way to actually test drive their different hypotheses and theories about how this can be helpful. Okay, and maybe just one more thing that I can show is we measured Merkel, and then, okay, it's not the right button. And you can see what a typical, let's say, topic page could look like, and so the actual entity being chosen and different associated entities with it, based just on co-occurrence and in text, and like maybe not directly having a clear relationship, but just because they appear together, like Holland and so on. Recent articles, different types of popularity trends of how much an entity was mentioned, a specific representation of how this entity is represented in the graph. Part of this information, of course, because otherwise it will become too messy. The ability to further navigate and see other, informations about, say, the association between the Ukrainian president and Holland and so on. Yeah? So just an example of these template pages that we mentioned that you can actually, of course, style additionally and so on, I mean, with your own designers and so on. So,
Bobby, we have two questions that came in. One had to do with the text mining process and whether or not it could identify synonyms. And the second one had to do with, you showed some bio information, some biographical information that was coming up. Is that coming from linked open data, or is that some other source of data? Where is that originating from, and how is it stored?
In this case, it is coming from linked data. In the cases of actual systems, very often it's either a combination or completely proprietary data. For example, organizations like Bloomberg and Financial Times and so on that are using our technology, they of course want to have their own data sets because to some extent this ensures quality. On the other side, it ensures also some kind of uniqueness for them and some competitive advantage and so on. So this is, let's say, such an example, yeah. Regarding synonyms, yes, of course, it is in most cases related to what the modeling in the data set is. So how rich is the description? For example, do you know that the chief executive officer is also a CEO? Or you want to derive this through orthographic reference and abbreviations and so on? And I was trying to find an example when it's very, very obvious. But also in the case of Merkel, it was clear that she had at least one or two labels, although it's a simple data set that we used in this case. So you can see here that we know that it's Merkel, but it's also, we know it's Angela Merkel, we know it's a chancellor, so we can construct these different references and so on. I think we don't have much time, so maybe I should just, because I mean, if some people came just for the technology, I think I was disappointed if I don't continue.
Yeah, that's fine. You can keep going, Borislav.
So I mentioned the semantic annotation as being the basis of it all, but I'll give you a bit more puzzling picture now. So on the top, you can see what a typical, let's say, representation of a data set could look like. Yeah? So some ontology that unites different types of instance data and relationships between different types of entities. On the right-hand side, we already talked about the result of concept extraction, some other sources that can actually add also to the semantic indexing, this type of knowledge graph that appears in the middle, linking the content, entities, relationships, and then all the user interfaces, APIs, mobile apps being driven by it. Yeah? And focusing a bit more just for a second on ontology and domain model, just to get an idea like what is a typical, let's say, set that some news organizations choose. Of course, if the organization is focused in another field, this set is different from different, let's say, types of entities. An actual model from a client from about, I don't remember, already 4 years ago or more, is on the left-hand side. You see the model of the content, the images, the videos, all the assets that they already had. They just expressed it in semantic terms. The classification model that they already had, they just expressed it as an ontology. Attack model, which was connecting the assets with linked data about entities, about real-world topics, and so on. Yeah? So it's a very, very simplified view of what are the key components, and it's pretty much where the whole work starts from. Something that is, of course, unreadable, but just to give you an example from another financial publisher, Euromoney, this was how at some point their macroeconomics model was looking like. Yeah? And just to give you an idea of also how this technology is being implemented. So this is definitely not a layer of black box components that comes into the publishing organization and substitutes everything you ever created yourselves, bought, or developed over the years. It is definitely just a layer. So in order to identify what are the benefits, we prefer to start actually on the level of business requirements. Being technical people ourselves, it's still very important to understand what is the benefit for the client, and then we can talk down, on the through the level of functional requirements, talk with subject matter experts and information architects to create, let's say, a picture of what are the main types of entities, of relationships that we need to extract. Yeah? And on this basis, information architects and also subject matter experts can create from proprietary databases, existing linked data, create the domain model, you can say, including already instance data. On the level of the annotation process itself and how we develop, how we adapt our pipelines, we have been developing text analysis applications, initially in the context of the general architecture for text engineering coming from the Sheffield University, a great development environment for computational linguists. Later, let's say, not only contributing open source components there, but also having always some, let's say, new generation of proprietary, especially machine learning components in our hands. We have focused a lot on the methodology of how to build, the proper pipelines for the client, and it starts with defining these annotation guidelines, what needs to be done, annotating gold standards, and just a quick. Tony, actually, how much time I have, because I'm not sure. I'm still good? Or?
You have 10 more minutes, and we can go a little over if you like.
I'll prefer to use them for questions. I'll just be a bit more quick, then it feels natural probably, but the meaning for this is let's have a bit of interaction. Eh? So this is a typical extraction pipeline where the main things are the green box, which is being powered directly from the semantic database and the domain models that are created there, and the machine learning components which are directly influenced by human examples. So this whole work that I explained about the curation process and so on, this is training this exact component. And the output of these extraction pipelines is being generated into the semantic index. And you can see the different layers, and I guess that you'll get this presentation, you'll be able to see like, okay, finding different types of relationships like gym, works for the IMF and so on. Yeah? So this pretty much a simplified view over the structure of such a pipeline. It usually has like about between 30 and 60 different components. Yeah? So how we build it? It's an iterative process. It's a constant evaluation. We start this when we need to specialize in a specific domain. Say we deliver a pipeline and a data set that are more or less generic for news and media, but you want to specialize it, for example, just for movies, or you want to specialize it in the financial domain and so on, yeah? Or just lifestyle stuff. So the initial thing is driven by the domain model. It's continuously evaluated and improved on the basis of tweaking the instance data that you have in the domain model in the semantic database. Then when the curation process starts, then you have more statistical modeling job. So you have a continuous evaluation of machine learning models, and then again human feedback, and this is powering all the time the adaptation of the concept extraction. And getting back to the, let's say, workflow-focused architecture that I've shown you, I mean, of course, this is a simplified view from the technology point of view. I mean, you see just semantic enrichment and semantic database. I mean, there is a product behind our GraphDB, our triple store. On top of it is our Ontotext publishing platform, and there is the specialization for news and media on top. And these are just some of the major APIs. So different types of capabilities for text analytics, training and adaptation so that the text analytics adapts to the changing environment, and examples from humans, context and behavior-driven recommendation and personalization engine with different types of logging of user activity, with maintaining user profiles and serving bit landing pages or related reads when you have already a focus page, different types of semantic search, faceted search, concept focus search, trend analytics, and so on. Maintenance, of course, of more mundane things like content and corporal gold standards and direct access to the concept profiles and so on. So this all comes as individual APIs, but we can have this focus on some other meeting, yeah. And of course, the data layer is also not just the semantic database, not just GraphDB. Gave an example of what is the default, let's say, types of data which are in the publishing platform as we release it. But you have also machine learning models which are for tagging, for classification, disambiguation between ambiguous entities. So a lot of John Does and Smiths and so on. And of course, we also use contemporary technology for different types of storage and indexing like Solar and Cassandra, where we store different types of information. We keep this under the hood. And yeah, I guess this is pretty much it. It's probably important to say that we do the same type of publishing solutions in other domains. Like we are quite active in education, we are quite active in academic and scientific publishing, where, let's say, it's a bit different domain. It requires much more depth in some of the modeling, much more depth in some of the text analytics. And this is just a teaser so that you know that we have something else. And I'll take a rest and let my colleague Ilian invite you to this event.
Yeah, it's Ilian here. I cover educational and academic publishing at Ontotext, so I have several announcements for the coming London Book Fair. We'll be glad to have a meeting with you on the several events that I will just bring your attention to. Join us for a roundtable discussion within the frames of the Publishing for the Digital Mind conference. It is starting one day before the fair on Monday, 13th of April, and it will take place in the afternoon session. We'll be glad to see you at our presentation on Wednesday, April 15th, and we'll be talking about maximizing the value for academic and scientific publishers. And we are also, we're welcome, more than welcome to meet you on our stand number 3B38. So send your meeting request to publishing@ontotext.com for a face-to-face meeting with our team.
So Ilyan obviously doesn't give his mobile still, but it's probably the next step. So in general, about publishing solutions, we'll be more than happy to have one-on-one sessions, and actually this is the best way that we can be helpful, because to be honest, for me it was not so easy to speak to all of you without seeing your faces, and I prefer much more that we understand the issues that you're facing, and then we can probably help. Yeah.
Very good, Borislav. There are a couple of additional questions that came in. One had to do with the length of the articles. News articles are typically small. Does the annotation work on larger articles of, dozens of pages to hundreds of pages? And then the second question is on language support. Can you address text mining and the language support that we have?
Sure. So it's more challenging to remember two questions, but I'll still start with the size of the documents. Of course, it is challenging when you have larger documents. I mean, processing time gets different. For example, a typical news article, our clients expect us to handle it for a couple of hundred of milliseconds at the worst, yeah. And then for, let's say, bigger documents, it is much different. So for probably already 5 years, we have been producing systems on the basis of the same technology for, let's say, big corporate clients, but also government organizations like the U.S. Department of Defense and so on, which are focused on different type of legislation, user manuals for their officers, and this type of highly structured, you can say, documents, but which are hundreds of pages. Yes? And of course, the processing times are different. Handling the structure of the document is also important. Like in the pharmaceutical industry, some of our colleagues using the same backend technology, focusing in life sciences, have to analyze clinical studies and so on. So we do this for the last 7-8 years. So it is completely within reach of the technology. Yes. About languages, so over the years we have, I mean, of course, this is a big challenge. I mean, yeah, let's face it. Over the years we have already had applications in French, in German, in Dutch, in Spanish, in Chinese, even in Arabic. Even we won some competition of BBC for concept extraction and how media should look tomorrow and so on. So we have a methodology that allows us quite quickly, let's say within 2 to 3 months, to reach pretty much the same quality as we have for English, to reach it in another language. And this is based on some, let's say, bootstrapping on the basis of the links in existing link data sets and public sources like Wikipedia and the like. Yeah. And on this basis, being able to minimize the human, let's say, intervention about creating gold standards and so on. So instead of having to make like 5,000 documents corpus, you can do a 200 documents corpus and address the language. Yeah.
Very good. There's one last question. I'm not sure if you can address this one, but we have somebody on the WebEx that works with .NET, and the API that they've seen is the .NET RDF. They're wondering if it's compliant with Sesame. And then do we plan on developing a native API for C#?
Actually, our objective was always to be agnostic from the technology of our clients, because, like, for example, Bloomberg uses one technology, the BBC uses another, and so on. So we don't want to actually put any limitations in the environment. So everything we expose to the client software environment, you can say, are APIs, web APIs that can be used, and they communicate returning, JSON structured responses and so on. So there is no issue with this language compatibility anymore. It's different times, but yeah, I don't know this .NET RDF. we can take this question offline, but the baseline is we don't actually put this limitation on our users, partners, and clients.
Okay, well, thank you. If there are additional questions, you can send those to us. That's perfectly fine. I'd like to thank everyone who's attended, and also Borislav and his team for taking the time to prepare the presentation and deliver it so well. Appreciate that. Visit us at the London Book Fair. We will send the recording link out within 48 hours of this, so we'll send it to everyone who registered. You can always read more about the technology at ontotext.com, and we'd like to just thank you and have a nice day.
Thanks from me as well, and contact us if you want just to share and discuss. It will be a pleasure, and I hope next time I see your faces as well. Thanks, guys.